Everybody, this is Jim at SB500chart.com. It is about 4:30 on September 25th, 2014. After a rough day in the markets, we're going to take a look, see if we can make some sense out of this, see if it's time to freak out or whether to take this in stride. You have to make your own call on that, but we will point out where our various trend lines are on the chart and why we might have done what we did today from a technical standpoint. But before we look at it, I need to remind you, as always, that the website and this video are for educational purposes only. Nothing stated at the site or in the video is intended to be used as investment advice. I can draw lines on charts, but you have to draw your own conclusions from your own research and make investment decisions that are suitable for your personal financial situation. I am not a licensed financial professional. I'm just a guy who draws lines on charts. So let's take a look. We're starting out on a 30-minute chart just to kind of put this in perspective, okay? We closed the day down a little bit more than 1.5%, down more than 30 points. But I remind you, 30 points at roughly 2,000 isn't that huge a move. So when you read headlines about S&P has its worst day in X period of time, you have to ask yourself, are they talking about a point move? In other words, are they talking about this 31 points, or are they talking about the 1.58%? I don't know, okay? But I know that when we talk about a 30-point move at this point in time, it is 1/3 as bad as when we were talking about a 30-point move 5.5 years ago, just for what it's worth. Now, I noticed something this morning. Early off, I was looking at the chart, and I was kind of looking at this view, and it actually may have been more like that. And I saw this gray line down here, and I was kind of going, now, where does that gray line come from? I was having a little trouble remembering. Why do I have this gray line here at about 1970? You might remember that is on the chart from when we were looking at this. I have to go to a 30-minute version for when we were looking at this little potential topping pattern right here. Remember, we looked at this as a possible head and shoulders top, and we had measured a downside target of about 1970 from this from this little topping pattern. Now, we ended up getting up and above that neckline a couple times, but that was, if you look at this and you say that there was some pent-up selling pressure in that pattern, I guess you could say maybe that plus what we built up here on this second move up over 2,000, maybe that's part of the reason why we're here. But it appears pretty clear that the S&P was not happy with just a back test on this line. And I remind you that when we draw these trend lines on charts, they are not impenetrable barriers. None of them are. I would tend to think of them more as speed bumps, or if you live around the Mississippi River, maybe a levee, an earthen mound, where if things are pretty normal, then it'll get turned back at a short-term trend line. But when we have more significant selling pressure, well, then we have a higher tide of sellers, and what we would expect to hold back a move under some circumstances, under more severe circumstances, it gives way. And I think that's what we saw today. So what that means is that this little head and shoulders top here, despite this new high that got set up here. We got down to that target level that we pointed out back on the 10th. Now, where would support now lie? Well, I would tend to think that maybe this extended line right here could still work as support, because it was this channel support line for quite a while. Additionally, we're very close to to a cluster of support lines that if we kind of point them out as a cluster, you can see they kind of congregate right here around the low 1950s. So I think we should not see, unless the wheels just come off of something from a fundamental standpoint, I think we should be seeing a bounce from this move down fairly soon. And again, if we're looking at a potential bearish scenario, I'll remind you, we really don't encounter that until we set a low that is underneath the low that we had back on August 8th or August 7th and 8th. Can't tell exactly where that absolute low was, but that's around 1904, 1905. If we get underneath that, then we likely would take out a long-term support line, and things could then get dicey. Now, all of this also to say and to remind you that we have been calling this potential inverted head and shoulders pattern a potential inverted head and shoulders pattern. There is no guarantee that the pattern breaks out over the neckline. It has been something that I've been hoping for, something I've been looking for, something that I've pointed out in the chart, but something that so far has failed to happen. And if we break through this red line right here and come down and set a new low that is lower than 1904, 1905, then I think we have to call this a busted pattern. I'm hoping that isn't the case. I'm hoping we find some support very near here. And like I said, we've got a couple reasons to expect some support. But with what we've seen today in mind, I'm going to sort of replicate some potential trend lines inside of what we have been looking at over the past 3 weeks, with the idea that maybe we're going to get a reversal out of this before we break some of these significant support lines. And that, I would hope we could maybe do that. First off, I think this line is in pretty good shape. We're going to leave this green line right here, but I'm going to change the color of it to blue. And then I'm going to leave this line in place. Now I'm going to draw another line over these two peaks, because with what we saw today, I believe it's safe to say that this is a resistance level. So I'm going to make this also blue. With that in mind, if we get over this resistance line, then, dare I say, that should be the end of the selling, and we should start back up. This resistance line, I think I'm pretty comfortable with that. It was tried 1, 2, 3, 4 times. It's held up. If we get tried again, we may sell off a bit more tomorrow. Let's see if we find support around 1960. If so, and we get a bounce, then maybe we could take out this upper line around 1980. And when we come back and look at this thing in retrospect, we see yet another situation similar to what we saw back in the first part of August, where we encountered a pretty significant dip that should have been bought. So, guys, that's about all I can say about what happened today. Just a disappointing day, to be honest. I thought we had a good chance of coming up to test this line, and that was exactly the opposite of what we got. So, forgive me. It's not always going to work. I'm not always going to get it. And as nice as the chart works out sometimes it just doesn't. So, there's your video for September 25th, 2014. Thanks for watching. Let's see if we get a bounce down here, and if we do, if we can come back and try to take out this line right here, and maybe we're just taking a little bit more time over here on the right side of this inverted head and shoulders pattern, which I'll be honest is not the typical. It's not what we've been used to seeing, but maybe that's what we're getting this time. So thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging with this. Let's see where we find support. Let's see if it's in a spot in the chart that makes good sense. And again, gosh, yesterday looked so nice with that bounce on that back test, but sadly that all got taken back today. So let's see what Friday brings us and what we might see coming our way next week. Thanks again for watching. Take care.